Okay, looks like we're streaming.
Okay. Oops. I lost my record function.
Oh, you need me to record?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I got it back.
I got it. Okay.
I had it set up and then. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Seems like it's been a while since we gave a webinar, but we're here. Lance Luke, Martin Pea. We got an interesting topic, painting versus waterproofing. But before I get to that, I want to let you know that um, it's National Vanilla Pudding Day. So if you like vanilla pudding, uh, help yourself. If you don't, maybe chocolate, or maybe you don't like pudding at all, switch to Jello or ice cream, whatever. Help yourself. And then I've been waiting all year for this day, and it's National Buy a Musical Instrument Day. So not that I need another guitar to my add to my 20 guitar collection, but that's just an excuse to buy a ukulele or whatever. I don't know. Martin, you need to buy a ukulele and start practicing so we'll be ready for the next jam session. But okay, good. So I promise you that this webinar is going to be more interesting than watching paint dry, although it's about painting. Um, Painting versus waterproofing, protecting your building inside and out. So we're going to go through this. This webinar is presented by Construction Management Inspection. It's a local building inspection and construction management firm located in Honolulu, Hawaii, which I own and manage. And Martin helps with the back end stuff. And we're happy to present this webinar today. Let me go through this stuff. National Building Expert, that's me. Okay, so what is the difference between painting and waterproofing? Well, let's say you drive a car and it has paint on it. The paint actually acts as a waterproofing component to protect your car from rusting. Um, there's a difference actually between the building component painting and the building component waterproofing. Sometimes they're used interchangeably, sometimes not. We're talking about painting a car. Um, Now, what kind of paint do they use for a ship or a boat, right? It's could be marine paint, which is a higher grade of regular paint, and it acts as waterproofing. Okay, so we're talking about painting of homes and buildings, not painting as a artist, painting a Picasso or Rembrandt, Mona Lisa, things like that. So we're talking about homes and buildings. I know professional painters that are artists, and that's a different kind of webinar. So let's talk about the difference between painting and waterproofing. Painting, you have an aesthetic enhancement and basic protection, as opposed to waterproofing that prevents water infiltration and long-term protection, although paint does the same thing. Okay, I'll explain further. Some materials commonly used in each approach, in each type of building material. So painting, there's uh, there's a difference in paint: acrylic paint, latex, oil-based, epoxy, and primer. And for people who are going to do it yourself, it's good to go to the hardware store, City Mill, Home Depot, Lowe's, and talk to them about what kind of paint to use or look online. And try to figure out which is the best paint to use and, for the best price. Waterproofing, we're talking about liquid waterproofing membranes. We're talking about asphalt base coating, polyurethane waterproofing, cementitious waterproofing that has cement-based product in it, silicone sealants and sheet membranes. And there's various different products on the market. Key differences in protection and application. Painting versus waterproofing. Painting offers surface level protection, shielding against dirt, UV rays. That's a lot of sun and light moisture, but it's not designed to block significant water infiltration conditions. Painting typically is applied as a surface coat in a few layers and requires regular maintenance every 5 to 10 years. Now, why 5 to 10 years? Well, depending upon the exposure and where the location is. For instance, if your house is in a desert, you're probably not going to need to paint as much. But if you're located in a wet area, such as on the island of Oahu, we have considered windward areas that are wet, like Martin raised his hand there. On the windward side, Kaneohe, Ohui Mano area, Manoa, these areas, Nu'uanu, get a lot of rain, right? So the paint is not going to last as long if it keeps raining and sunny, raining, and things like that. Now, waterproofing creates a strong moisture barrier, and it could protect whatever it's protecting from, let's say, mold, rust, corrosion, concrete spalling, and wood rot. Waterproofing involves a more thorough layering process and is used in critical moisture-prone areas. It is longer lasting, often needing reapplication only every 10 to 20 years. Now, that's just a ballpark. Depends on the use. So let's say you're doing not vertical waterproofing like a wall, but horizontal, like waterproofing a parking deck. Now, depending upon the amount of traffic, that deck may need recoating every 10 years. It may not last 10, 20 years. It may last 12 years. So it's important to always inspect and not just go by, oh, well, the manufacturer's warranty said the paint's going to last 10 years, so we don't need to paint. But then after 8 years, you notice the paint peeling off. Well, isn't that a red flag that you need to repaint? Okay, same thing with waterproofing. Choosing the right application for your home or building. And, this applies to a single-family house, duplex, townhouse, a apartment complex, apartment building, a 40-story high-rise building, and then commercial properties such as office buildings, shopping centers, golf courses, hospitals, churches, schools. I could go on. So what I'm letting you know, it's not only for commercial, but it's also residential, and it applies to your own house. So choosing the right application for your building. We're going to use paint for interior walls and ceilings, your trim, doors, windows, and this is interior as well as exterior. Low moisture exterior walls. It doesn't get wet all the time. Decorative elements, things that are, decoration only. And these are the optimum areas for painting. Now, what is the areas for waterproofing? Critical waterproofing areas consist of foundation and basements. There's not too many basements in Hawaii, although the basements are prevalent on the mainland and in various parts of the world. roofs and roof decks, exterior walls in high moisture areas, also in low moisture areas, parking decks and walkways, and bathrooms and wet rooms. Wet rooms are like laundry and other rooms that could get wet on the mainland or in some locations where there's snow. You have a area called a mud room where you walk into the room, and that's where you take your wet boots and your raincoats off and all that. So consider that area for waterproofing also. The impact of environmental exposure on each choice, each type. So there's painting and there's waterproofing. Let's talk about painting first. UV radiation, the sun keeps shining on your wall. It's going to cause fading. It's going to cause cracking or peeling or bubbling or any of those types of conditions where the paint's not adhering to the original substrate. And then there's moisture and humidity conditions. It leads to bubbling, peeling, or mildew. And then temperature changes results in expansion, contraction, and potential cracking. So just remember that the more often the temperature changes and the weather conditions change, like it's sunny, rainy, hot, cold, the more problematic it's going to be to your paint covering. Now, on the waterproofing side, there's keep track of moisture and humidity, temperature fluctuations. So the waterproofing can withstand more moisture and temperature condition changes than regular paint. Temperature fluctuations withstands variations with minimal impact. So in other words, you have a parking deck waterproof, and let's say it's 90 degrees. Okay? Your waterproofing material can handle that. And then it goes to 30 degrees. Your waterproofing can handle that also. Okay. Salt and corrosive elements protects against corrosion on exposed surfaces. So take, for instance, coastal areas such as Hawaii, San Francisco, any area on the West Coast or the southern coast of the United States, like San Diego, Louisiana, Florida. It has, any time you're in a coastal area, you always get weather conditions with salt in the air. The salt is in the ocean water, right? So seawater contains a lot of salt. What happens through the wave action, the salt gets released in the air, and then especially in Hawaii, the trade winds are blowing, and it's blowing the salt in the air onto land, and then guess what? Whatever homes or buildings are there, and that's where the wind's carrying the salt and humidity and things like that. So a lot of exposure to the salt in the air. So if you happen upon to go upon see a building or a house that's right on the beach, right on the ocean, go there and try to take your finger and try to rub it against the wall. Then you see there's salt build up there and things like that, which is not the best condition for protecting the building. Let's talk about addressing deterioration in various building elements or building components. And why would we even use paint or waterproofing to cover these building components? Well, we need to protect them from the elements, from the weather. So wood surfaces, right? In the old days, the houses and buildings were made out of wood, lumber. So the waterproofing and paint protects against water damage and rot. Paint primarily offers aesthetic benefits because instead of looking at a brown, wood building that's not painted, It may be, red or blue or a nice looking color. And then we have concrete. Waterproofing prevents cracking and spalling, and then paint provides only basic surface protection. And that's why normally paint is used on vertical walls, and vertical meaning the side of the building from top to bottom. Okay, so the sides of a building, that's vertical. And then horizontal, right? It's not vertical. So horizontal could be like a flat parking deck where you drive on or a walkway. Okay, and those components, like horizontal components, are normally waterproof rather than painted. Then you have metal components. Waterproofing reduces rust and corrosion. Paint protects temporarily, but still the metal may degrade because the paint's fading or got too old. Let's talk about preventative maintenance to extend the life and appearance of these building components. What would you do? Okay, so let's take a single-family house. You want to do regular inspections, walk around your house. Of course, you should walk around your house in a sunny day, not when it's storming, raining, snowing, hailing, or there's thunder and lightning. You want to be safe, right? And you check for peeling paint, cracks, or wood rot, or areas of water infiltration. If your home is made out of wood, if it's made out of concrete, then you would also look for paint peeling, paint cracking, cracks in the concrete, or block tile, or stucco. And then water infiltration conditions. If you have water infiltration conditions, that means you have cracks there, or you look at areas of dissimilar materials where your building components differ and they're built right next to each other. For instance, you have a door frame and you have a stucco wall, or you have a window frame right next to concrete or wood. There's a joint there, and you got to make sure it's properly caulked because that's where water could get in when it rains. Timely reapplications. Apply paint or waterproofing as needed based on wear and exposure, not based on the manufacturer's warranty. Okay, the warranty year or term, 5 years, 10 years, etc. Okay, is kind of like a baseline, but in reality, you still need to inspect and paint or waterproofing as needed. Like I mentioned before, if your waterproofing has a 10-year warranty, don't just count on the 10-year warranty. You count on what's physically happening. What do you see in your building or in your house? Okay, if there's problems, then you're going to need to paint or waterproof sooner than what time period the warranty is. Surface preparation before any kind of paint or waterproofing is applied. You want to make sure that the surface is clean and dry before applying paint or waterproofing to enhance adhesion and durability. So for instance, if there's a lot of dirt, dust, grime, all that has to be cleaned first before you even start thinking about painting. Maybe there's peeling paint, bubbling paint. You're gonna have to scrape all that off to solid surface, and then you're ready for your prime coat. Don't just paint over it or waterproof over dust and dirt because it's not going to last that long. It's just going to start peeling off. What are the factors that influence how long paint or waterproofing is going to last? Number one, product quality. Number two, environmental exposure. Three, application technique. And four, maintenance practices. So I'm going to talk about each one right now. So the product quality makes a difference. If you buy the cheapest paint, okay, then your exposure is going to be problematic. Your application technique, no matter how good a painter you are, right? If you're a professional and your product is crappy, is junk, it's not going to do the trick. Okay. And then further, if you don't even maintain and you already have cheap paint, then that's already a red flag. It becomes a problem. So you want to use the best paint you can at the right price. So if you can't afford the top number one paint because of the cost, then you go to number two. Don't just go buy cheap paint on sale and think that's gonna last, because I wouldn't believe you buy cheap paint and you look on the can and it says, 10-year warranty. That's typically not, it's not gonna happen. Okay. So if you buy very good paint, then it's gonna last as far as the environmental concerns. If you're a good painter, then you're using good paint, then you're going to have a better product there. And then if you maintain it properly, then that's better. So the problem that I see over the years, even if people use good paint, okay, they may have not painted correctly, or the painter they hired maybe rushed. Okay, and then the other thing was they don't they're not maintaining, they're not repainting like they should. So if you drive around neighborhoods and you see a house where there's streaks or whatever, and it looks like they didn't paint for 20 years, that's what I'm talking about. They're behind on their painting cycle, sometimes way behind. And in condominium buildings, they don't follow the proper reserve study painting cycle. And now it's causing wood rot, termite damage. If it's a wood frame building, if it's a concrete building, now you have these spalling conditions manifesting. So let's say on a high-rise building, it costs $250,000 to paint, right? But they're not painting in a timely manner, and they let 20 years go by before they do the next painting cycle. During that time, that building is slowly developing cracks and spalling conditions. So not only when they have to paint, right? Not only are they going to have to pay $250,000 for the paint job, now they're probably going to have to pay $250,000, $500,000, maybe $750,000 to repair spalling. So the takeaway here is you got to pay attention to the painting cycle, because the cost to correct the problem may be 2, 3, 4 times, or even 6 times the cost of painting, because there's spalling conditions and other factors that is going to increase the price. And you're going to be shocked, and it's not going to be a happy situation when there's not enough money to pay, and there's going to be a special assessment, or you got to get a bank loan that every single unit owner is going to have to pay for. Okay, so condo boards and property managers, that's a heads up. Typical warranty periods for paint and waterproofing products, and I'm sure you want to know this. The paint, typically, we're talking about 2 to 7 years, covering issues like peeling, fading, cracking. But read the fine print in the warranty. The warranty is only going to cover if the paint is defective, if the paint product is defective. So if you have a building painted, and listen to this is very important. Don't think that, let's say there's a 10-year warranty the paint company is going to provide, okay? The warranty only covers if the paint is defective, not if your building is defective. So let's say you have your building painted, and 2 years later, the paint starts peeling and cracking and all that, okay? and you think, no problem, we'll just, we'll get it painted for free. What happens in real life here, okay, the painting contractor is going to come and look at it and say, must be bad paint. So let's call the paint manufacturer. The painting manufacturing rep comes up and he looks and goes, okay, I'm going to take a sample and send it to our lab for analysis. But you know what? How did you guys prep? And it looks like you guys didn't use primer, or you didn't use enough primer. The mill was too thin, or you didn't properly sand the wood down, or you didn't fix the spall here, and this is a location where the paint's cracking and peeling off. Okay, so there's times where the paint company says, no, it's not the paint, nothing wrong. You get it back from the laboratory, and nothing's wrong with the mixture or anything. Now what happens? It goes to the contractor. So you might be fighting with the contractor over poor prep, poor application. Who was the ones that painted? Did they hire people off the street that had no painting training at all, and you needed workers, so you just gave them a job and it was on the job training, but you didn't tell the client that? It could be that situation. Okay. Similar, likewise, waterproofing usually lasts 5 to 15 years. Most times it's like 10 years, 7 to 10 years, covering moisture intrusion and water resistance failures. But similarly to the paint, the waterproofing warranty only covers a defect in the waterproofing. Let's say in the factory there was a mix, but somehow they didn't add enough of one product, and now it's defective. Or you open the 5-gallon can of waterproofing and you notice that, geez, it's supposed to be blue, but it looks yellow. Okay, well, then that definitely, there's a defect there. But same thing, if you're waterproofing over cracks, concrete spalling and all that, and in a year or two, the waterproofing fails and it cracks because of the spalling condition, the corroded rebar, the manufacturer's not going to honor the warranty because they're going to say, our product didn't fail. It was a substrate that failed. It was the corroded rebar that caused the concrete to crack. And when the concrete cracks, it cracked our waterproofing. So, be very careful. That's why when you're doing big jobs, it's always wise to hire a consultant, construction manager that can be there, inspect, take pictures, and document things. Okay. And that prevents a lot of problems, a lot of headaches, a lot of expensive repairs. Now let's talk about the importance of reapplication and inspection schedules. You got to follow the warranty, right? Read the fine print. Don't just say thanks for the job, and maybe you don't even have any warranty papers. If you don't, ask the contractor, hey, where's my paperwork, right? You got to give me I want the warranty documents. I want to track it. I want to file it. So you're saying that this job is going to last 10 years. All right. I'm going to put it in my folder and file it away. And if anything happens within a 10-year period, I'm going to be calling you, right? If you don't have that document, what do you have for reference? Okay. So be sure to request documentation. That maintains your protection. You want to inspect, so don't wait until cracks occur. You want to inspect every year so you can pinpoint these locations, and you can go back to the contractor and say, hey, I noticed that you painted my building 3 years ago, but there's cracks now and it looks like there's some failure. Can you come by and take a look? Don't just wait. And then your reapplication makes the product last longer, ensures aesthetic appeal. You want everything to look nice. then also it extends the lifespan of building elements. Okay. Have you guys ever been to Disneyland or Disney World? Okay, I see a bunch of hands up. All right, guess what? When you had good fun and you spent your $600 that day, because everything is expensive from parking to the park entry fee. And once you go in, you're captured, right? You can't leave and go to McDonald's for lunch and then drive back, right? So you're stuck. So you got to find the whatever restaurant, especially if you have kids and the kids get hungry, you just got to go find the nearest place that sells food and buy food. And if you're a family of four, let's say uh, two parents and two kids, guarantee every meal is going to be over $100, right? So it's expensive, right? So anyway, you had a fun day. You spent a load of money, and you're leaving the park, and drive back to your hotel or you know timeshare or whatever. Okay, guess what happens to the park? All these other workers come out, right? When the park is closed and they're cleaning, and guess what else? They're painting. You know how much paint Disney World and Disneyland uses? They use a ton of paint. They have thousands of cans for every color, and they're painting almost every day. If there's a nick, they just paint over that. So a lot of times, like the last time I was there and I looked at railing and fencing, they had so much paint, it was so thick. I could just scrape it off and it would, come out in huge clumps. Okay. But that's why the park looks so good. That's in their whole protocol, that everything gotta be like spanking new, nice and new. When visitors come in, they don't want anything to look old. Everything has to be like, it was just made that day. Okay, so that's what's happening. So if you want to follow the Disney protocol, I think that's a good protocol. It costs a lot of money, but maybe you don't have to follow it to a T, but at least like don't neglect things. I've never seen a building in the Disney park, any Disney park, and I've been to Disneyland, Disney World many times. Um, I've never seen a building that had peeling paint or problematic paint issues. I've never seen it because they pay attention. Now, on the downside, they're not paying attention to their walkways. Because when I was there, I inspected a lot of safety issues, trip hazard and all that. So they got to do a better job of that. But that's deviating. We're talking about painting and waterproofing here. Okay, so geez, that was fast. So conclusion, right? Make sure that you select the right material, waterproofing or painting, whatever applies. In most cases, if you're living in a single family house, right? You don't need to waterproof all your walls. You just need to paint and paint often. Now, if you have walkways or driveways, you may want to waterproof that. If you use regular paint, it's not going to last that long. And I failed to mention in the beginning to thank those of you who logged on to our Zoom platform and registered in advance for a webinar. And then those of you who are listening in from the continental United States and then also parts around the world, that's great. And then those of you who are tuned in to our various platforms on social media, such as Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, we really appreciate that. If you have any comments or questions, please post them. We'll get to it if we can't address it today, or if you're watching a replay and you have comments or questions, post that, and then we'll be happy to check it out and help you accordingly. And we have a good track record of responding to every single post of questions. And if we don't, let us know, and we'll try to do a better job, but I don't think I've had any comments from people saying, hey, you know what? I posted and you didn't give me a response. Um, Also, there's various other ways to contact us. Phone number is 808-422-2132. Our main website is askbuildingexpert.now.site. And then email lanceluke@hawaiibuildingexpert.com. So there's no way that you cannot get a hold of us. And if all that fails, you'll call Martin's cell number and he'll gladly talk to you. Okay, what you missed, if you didn't attend our previous webinars, we got a whole slew of webinars we've given on almost any kind of building and construction topic that you can think of. You go to our website and you can watch the replay. You don't need a Netflix account, Disney account, or anything like that. You don't even need cable. You can just watch it on your phone using your Wi-Fi connection or cell connection. What's coming up? We got other webinars coming up, and the next one coming up is we're going to talk about concrete problems that people aren't aware of in the United States. Okay, and it's not necessarily talking about spalling. It's bad concrete. And then after that, if you're located in Hawaii, we got a crappy subject, okay? And why? Because the topic is cesspools. In Hawaii, the history and all that. You know what a cesspool is? It's just a hole in the ground. So you can imagine flushing the toilet and it goes down the drain pipe into this hole in the ground in your yard, right? Oh, that doesn't sound too good. And then after that, I'm going to be talking about coastal erosion around the world. Coastal erosion. You know, you heard of global warming, sea level rise, and all that. I'm going to give you the rundown on that within an hour. That's the webinar duration. So that's what's coming up. And then if you go to our website, we got a whole bunch of webinar topics, interesting topics. We're going to give 2 webinars a month. Okay. Once again, visit our website, askbuildingexpert.now.site. Now, we have people working on this website every single day. And this website is so huge, it takes me a while to even go through it. So for instance, we have a section called expert websites. If you go to our main website and you look at the menu, and we have websites regarding on different topics: painting, roofing, waterproofing, contractor licensing, construction, Lahaina fire, different things like that, asphalt, and it's all good information. People pay big money for that. We also have our National Building Expert blog that has a lot of stuff. I spent a lot of time writing these things. And then also webinars, like I mentioned before. It's free, so enjoy it while you can. And then books. We've written over 50 books that are published on Amazon. It may be 60 now, but I lost count. So take advantage of free books that you can download: building safety, senior safety, cast iron drain piping, asphalt, construction, Lahaina wildfire, concrete spalling, monster houses. Our book 1, I call it book 1 because it was the first book, called How Safe Is Your Building. Get it free now while you can, because in the future, we're all going to switch the platform and you're going to have to buy it. So instead of paying $4.99 on Amazon, you can get it for, $0. And that's because Martin said, why are we charging these people? Aren't we here to help? Let's just give it away. I said, oh, okay, then you're buying lunch because I have no money for lunch. Okay, we also have some special websites pertaining to this topic. paintingexpert.now.site and waterproofingexpert.now.site. So you can go to those for more information. And we're here now. We finally arrived at our Q&A. So you got questions, we got answers. So I'm going to turn it back over to Martin, who's the lovely, smiling host. And he's been a host for years, and he's doing an excellent job. That's why we keep giving him a raise every year. 0 times 0 is still 0, right? But only kidding. We take care of him. No worries. Okay, so Martin, any questions came up for a fantastic audience? I noticed that no one fell asleep. They all like are hanging in there, so must be good stuff. So Martin, take it away.
Okay, Lance, thank you, and thank you for the intro. And we've had a few questions that have come in from our different sites and communication sources. So let me give you the first one here. The question is, what should property owners consider when deciding between painting and waterproofing for various building areas?
Oh, okay. It's the application of use. Okay, so if it's a single family house or a commercial building, for the most part, your vertical walls, your walls, right? You're going to use paint instead of waterproofing. Your horizontal, your walkways, parking decks, and if you have a concrete driveway instead of bare concrete, you may want to waterproof it. So there's a difference. So don't go overboard, overkill. And if your house is made out of wood, you don't need to waterproof your walls and your eaves and all that. You use regular paint. But the key is you got to keep painting it. You can't just paint and then 20 years later think you're going to paint again. Okay. Paint doesn't last that long, no matter how expensive it is. So basically, that's the difference. You can ask us if you're in doubt or talk to a contractor, and most contractors will give you the correct rundown. Okay. If you ever run into a contractor that says, oh no, instead of paint, we can waterproof it and it'll last 50 years and all that, I would be cautious. Okay, so good. That's a good question.
Thank you, Lance, for that response. The second question that's come up here is, how can property managers maintain painted and waterproof surfaces effectively? Oh, especially now, yeah.
Well, one thing is, if we're talking about a condo, right, you review the reserve study. So there's two factors here. You look at the reserve study, see when the next time you need to paint or waterproof, and then you actually look at the condition. Now, if the condition is good, then maybe you can stick to the timeline as noted in the reserve study. But if it says, paint 7 years from now, and you look and the paint's peeling already and cracking and all that, then what is the most logical decision? The most logical decision is not to wait and use the reserve study as the Bible, but to rely on your own eyes and ears and intelligence to let the board know, hey, you know what? It kind of doesn't matter what the reserve study says. What's happening is your paint's failing, and if you wanna wait, it's going to cost you more money down the line, right? Not only in repairs, but do you think from today to 7 years from now, the cost of paint is not going to increase and the cost of labor is not going to increase, right? So just those factors alone should kind of require you to take action now rather than kicking the can down the road and waiting. So just be more proactive rather than reactive. A lot of times in my line of work, it's the reactive, not the proactive, that costs way more money. so much money that they don't have the money to fix the building because they just, let it get out of hand.
Okay, Lance, thank you. That's a good answer for our viewer there. Okay, the next question that's come up is what products are recommended for longer lasting protection?
Okay, there's so many different products in the market. If you go to, your general home and garden or hardware store, like say Home Depot, for instance, or City Mill, you look at the kind of paint they have, and there's some brands that say the name of the store, but it's it's not really the store brand per se. It's rebranded. It's actually from another paint company that they're putting their private label on it, sort of like wine maybe or something like that. But um the the paint company that I use is Sherwin-Williams, and because I've been working with them for 30 years plus, so um and I don't get paid for saying this, but I would recommend contacting Sherwin-Williams, right? And talking to them and asking them for guidance. Like, okay, I'm painting my house or I'm painting a big office building or condo building. What kind of paint should I use? And if they start telling you you should use super paint or whatever brand, whatever, saying, okay, thanks. Do you think you can actually come down and look at my building and, give me some advice? Now, normally for commercial buildings like office building, condo, shopping centers and all that, they would do that. On single family houses, maybe not, but um, just try to get as much information as you can from them. So that's my go-to painting source. And it's only because I've been working with them a long time. There's other painting brands that are available out there, but I've been very successful with Sherwin-Williams. And if you need referrals and more help, then let us know, and then maybe we can put you in the right direction. So they can also advise you on, after looking, what kind of paint to use or what kind of waterproofing and stuff like that. So although Sherwin-Williams has their own, different waterproofing connections, there's also other brands, and I can let you know there's NeoGuard and there's a Sika brand that also have excellent waterproofing, and it's a whole waterproofing system. It's not like just deck paint where you just use one or two coats and then that's it. Okay, so um, if you have any other questions about that, just reach back out to us and we can try to help you.
Okay, Lance, thank you. That's good, real specific recommendations, so appreciate it. Let's see, the next question here is for those on a budget, which is probably most of us, what cost-effective strategies can be used for building protection?
Okay, so let's say that your house or building's already painted. Okay, if you want to save money, right, you paint again when you need to, not when you want to, or not when you think you have the money to paint. Okay, because if you don't paint when you need to and you wait, it's going to cost you more in preparation or repairs. Wood rot, longer you go, you're going to have wood rot, termite damage, you're going to have concrete spalling. All that needs to be repaired before it's painted. Now, it doesn't make sense to paint over wood rot or termite damage, or you have a spalled concrete area. You're just going to paint over it, right? You're just wasting paint. So the key is you got to pay attention to these things and take care of it right away. Don't wait too long. There's cases where the condo association didn't paint when they should have, and now they have to pay over $1 million because of various factors caused by, their old paint. And it's mostly concrete spalling, loose railing. Now instead of painting and waterproofing, they waited too long, water got in, and now you have loose railing. Okay, so now that's another issue that they gotta fix, right? So it's always wise to repair and maintain right away rather than waiting. So that's another takeaway right there.
Thank you, Lance. I guess even the predecessor or precursor to that situation you mentioned is something that I try to do is do more regular inspections of the paint and waterproof conditions, yes, so that you can really know when it's time and know when it's needed, yeah. So appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, I know that let's say when people sell their houses, their realtor always says, "Oh, you better paint your house so it looks nice, curb appeal and all that." Right?
Right, right, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, the next question I have here is, what are the consequences of using paint in situations that require waterproofing?
It's not going to last. It's not going to last long. For instance, there was a building that I inspected. It was a concrete building, condo building, and they had walkways and they used deck paint where they should have used waterproofing. After 2 years, the paint started peeling off because that wasn't the right application. Another situation, it was a townhouse building, and they had wood decks, and they used regular paint. And before 5 years was up, the paint started peeling, and water got in the wood, and there was a lot of wood rot. So instead of using a good waterproofing system, they used paint, and it was problematic. In fact, the wood steps going up, they had painted those, and within a year, um, the paint just flaked off, got worn, and it just kind of they wasted their money painting. They should have, waterproofed it, paid more, did a better job, and waterproofed it to make, the building last longer.
Oh, okay, very good. Well, that made me think about the reverse situation. Can that be uh, the reverse where you would use waterproofing instead of the paint, the first,
Yeah,
where,
the same thing. Same thing would happen, except it might be overkill. Like let's say you have a house wood frame and you decide, well, I'm just going to use waterproofing instead of paint. Right? So you waterproof it, and that might be overkill, right? You're spending too much money, and if you don't know how to apply it, you're just gonna have a wreck job, right? Because the waterproofing, for the most part, material is thicker than paint. So if you apply too much, then you got all these globs dripping down your wall, and then you try to fix it, and then when you fix it, now the mill thickness is too thin because you keep trying to catch all the drips and all that. So it may be better off just painting, and then after 8 years just paint again than using the waterproofing method.
oh yeah, okay, that sounds reasonable. Plus, yeah, especially if you're talking painting like the vertical surface versus horizontal type, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of get an ugly job probably. I haven't done that yet, but good to know so I won't do it.
If you do, let me know. I'll come check it out and either say good job or I'll laugh.
Okay, sounds good. I think that's all we get here. Let me just double check if there's any new questions on the social side. Hmm.
Yeah, while we're waiting, while Mark is checking, the reason that we're actually giving this webinar on this topic is because I've had several people, including property managers, ask, well, what's the real difference between painting and waterproofing? We don't know. So I said, okay, enough people have asked. I think it's an interesting topic that we can, provide and share our information with people.
Very good.
So any other comments from social media?
No, I haven't seen any new ones, and gosh, your Zoom chat, no questions or.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. People can actually go on social media and ask questions later, and we can check in and respond to them. So thank you, everybody, for attending. On behalf of Martin Pea, Lance Luke, Ask the Building Expert, we sincerely appreciate you tuning in and watching and listening and asking your questions. We always like that. The Q&A part is the part that I really like at the end, because you may ask a question and other people may not want to ask, and then now they get the answer. Maybe they're too shy or whatever. So anyway, hopefully you can attend our next webinar and go get our free giveaways on our website before we stop giving things away. And tune in to our next webinar. We hope to see you there.